Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of
BSU. I'm waiting for y'all to join in one time, just one time.
I want the spotlight on you. This is all you.
It's
your dance move. Right now, I'm a backup dancer, and you the main
But
dancer.
you're not even backup dancing, no.
I'm watching you. I'm like, go ahead, Dennetra. You
That's
got it.
the side dancing.
Right? You don't see me moving. My camera paused.
This one.
Okay, anyway, welcome back to BSU. We are really glad to have you here. Last week we were talking about soul food, which I asked my dad about our family recipes this week, and so I just learned some cool family history this week. And we hope that you did too. We would love to hear about if you cooked anything this week, if you learned about anything in your family traditions this week, what your favorite soul food places are around here, anything. We want to hear that from you. This week, we are talking about redlining. And so redlining is it's a discriminatory practice where mortgage lenders and home insurance people, they have like their big old maps of different communities or different areas in a community, and they'll mark in blue or green or yellow places that they want to give loans to, they want to give good rates to, they want to treat fairly, and then they use a big red marker to outline the places, which are usually Black communities, predominantly communities of color, and even sometimes multiracial communities. Where they don't want to give fair loans, they don't want to give loans at all. They might, and they often do, outright lie and give bad loans too, so that they end up making a huge ton of money off of people who already don't have that much money in these neighborhoods. And over generations, that creates a big wealth disparity, so that some communities end up having very few resources, not very good schools, not very good things like parks, and some communities have all of this stuff and great home insurance and super expensive houses and pools in the backyard and all of this stuff. So we just first wanted to define it, because sometimes people say it without saying what it is. So we're talking about redlining today, and that's what it is.
Cool. Yeah, the first thing I was thinking about as you were talking, Keira, was blackballing and all that, falling under that, just that whole denying of resources. But I was also thinking from my homeowner hat of understanding how that happens. Yes, it's systematic oppression happening on the back burner and offering you, I think the rate right now is like 2 point something interest rate, and they may offer you a home loan with a 7 point as a deterrent. Things of that nature. This is why I got a Black realtor when I bought my house, to make sure that they were not going to limit us to a certain neighborhood or a certain lender. But anyway, but some of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking is this is how we get those experiences where some schools have better quality school materials. This is how we have that situation in our community where some streets are paved and some are rocky. Milwaukee. It's just because of what you said, property taxes and paying into it. Obviously, if you are in a neighborhood that is 7-figure homes, yeah, they're going to have better resources, better streets, more well-manicured lawns, things of that nature, because they're paying into that through their property tax and pouring it straight back into their neighborhood, by comparison to a neighborhood where everyone on the block only makes minimum wage. You're just not acquiring as much, generating as much property tax from that community to pour back into it. And it is unfortunate. It is definitely a way that we see the system working against us as people of color, more specifically African Americans, to continue to oppress us, and it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you go.
Oh, sorry.
Just saying that. Sorry.
You're
that
good.
when we see poor neighborhoods and rich neighborhoods, that is not an accident. That is designed, right? People do that on purpose.
Yep. Dennetra, I wanted to piggyback off of what you said about being denied, resources, and services, things like that. I know there's a group from Milwaukee right now that's traveling by foot from Milwaukee to Washington, D.C., and their hopes is to make it to D.C. by August 28th. That's the anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but I'm saying this to say that they were denied resources and services on their journey, like being told that some hotels and some gas stations were closed to them and they could not use the bathroom and things like that. They weren't doing anything bad. They're literally just marching from Milwaukee to Washington, D.C. with some stops in between because people have to get snacks, get water, have to use the restroom, but they are being denied services. So that sucks right there. And talking a little bit about redlining, I am originally from Milwaukee. You two know that. With Milwaukee being the #1 segregated city in America. That's not my opinion. It is a fact. I remember saying that to someone before, and they was like, well, that's your opinion. I'm like, but it's not an opinion, though. And then, it's an effect of redlining. You have, typically you have Black and African Americans living on the north side of Milwaukee. You typically have white and Caucasian living on the, somewhat of the east side and the west side. And then the south side is the Latinx community. And I just remember growing up, it never really dawned on me, like noticing it. But like now that I look back, I'm like, oh, but one of the things I really do remember is when we would travel to the south side for something, it seemed as though we were in a whole different area. And remember I said earlier, that's where the Latinx community lives. And it's not a bad thing. It seemed like I entered a different, I just never seen, I was like, everything is just, it seems like I'm not supposed to be here. Again, that I'm not saying like it was made. I'm not saying like there were signs up that said like, oh, you can't be here. It was just like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know like this side of Milwaukee existed. This is a city and we're all segregated, and it's like no one usually goes back and forth. Now it's a little different, but I remember growing up, it was like you never really went anywhere else, and then when you did, it was like, oh my gosh, like what is this? You know what I mean? So, and I remember when we were growing up, we this area we lived in, it was a thriving community, thriving Black community, and as time went on, especially now that I look back, when I go back to that area, there's no grocery stores anymore. There's a alcoholic store on like every single corner. A bunch of the schools went out of business. Like Dennetra said, the pavement is terrible. The malls are closed. Everything is like boarded up. And I just look and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I remember when this was an area where money was just flowing through that community. But now it's like certain people are being pushed out there. Resources are being taken away, but different resources are being strategically placed. Let's take away the grocery stores. Let's put a liquor store here. You might sell a little bit of fruit in here, but we're still going to put you here. But going down a couple blocks, we're going to put another one right here. Oh, let's put one more over here. So it's just interesting to see and just interesting to think about as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that deliberate, I really like that you're talking too about food deserts. Yes. As part of this is that like, there's not going to be a Whole Foods there, because like it's much more likely that we're going to instead put alcohol into this community, which is honestly a very old tactic, right? If we're thinking about soul food, one of the things that came up when we were talking about soul food, I think maybe off camera last week, is that the week between Christmas and New Year's on the plantations was a week off. And what the slave holders, the human traffickers did, because they knew that this was the week where we were most likely to organize, most likely to revolt, and most likely to get away, is they deliberately said, well, let us gift you for Christmas, just as a gift out of the goodness of our hearts, all of this alcohol, right? And so we didn't, that was what we did, is we spent a week being drunk because that was their agenda, right? We were not able to take care of ourselves because that was their agenda. And I think like modern day food deserts are just a real echo of that having happened back then.
And I think that also speaks to what Tori said about, yeah, they may have a little bodega, but they got all these, a couple of little fresh fruits, but mostly Zuzus and Wham Whams. And that's the whole intent. Snacks, for those who don't know, snacks. More specifically, unhealthy snacks. But like Tori and Keira said, it's done intentional because the goal and it is so placed in our community in a way that people now think that it costs more to eat healthy, that it's unaffordable to make healthy choices. And I'm like, dude, did you know sometimes the organic mushrooms is like 50 cents cheaper than non-organic mushrooms? And it's not the case that, yes, there are some organic items that cost more, and yes, it is the case that some produce costs more, but for the most part, a bag of fresh potatoes is significantly cheaper than a 10-pound bag is the same price as a 12-ounce package of French fries, for example. But that's the myth that's poured into our community, that is that healthy eating is unattainable, and then it's demonstrated and made possible to continue that myth by having these little cheapo places that don't sell fresh pineapples and fresh mangoes, but instead Zuzus and Wham Whams and liquor.
Yeah. And I remember, like, this area I'm thinking of, there was several grocery stores back then. That was back when Kohl's was also a grocery store. For those of you who are not from Wisconsin, Kohl's used to be a clothing store or a department store, and it was a grocery store. I don't know if it was a grocery store first, but Kohl's was a grocery store. And I remember there was a Kohl's in the area. There were other grocery stores. Now you go there, there's like one, or you have to drive like a few miles out to go to a grocery store. And but it's like the grocery stores that were in those communities are being closed down, because of whatever reason, or is being boarded up. There was, like, back in the day when Red Lobster was considered like a fancy restaurant, that was in the area. They took that away. Again, I don't want to say they took it away. I don't know why Red Lobster left, but just looking at that area, it's just like, wow. Okay.
And something even to consider with that healthy eating too is that, like, if you make minimum wage, but you are a primary breadwinner, which so many people are, then you might have enough money to have that food to go buy it, but you might not have enough time to get to the store that sells that, right? An hour round trip plus however much time preparing that food, however much time cleaning up after cooking, and all of that. If you can drive through McDonald's, the meal is cooked for you, and all you have to do is throw the trash in the trash can, right? And so just thinking about, like, how many different ways something like redlining plays into a system of, like, not only are we removing money, not only are we removing good schools, but we're also literally removing time. We're making it so that people have to work longer hours and more days in the week just to get by. So the idea of even preparing, even something that's like a 30-minute fast meal, they're never really 30 minutes. And there's cleanup, and there's having somebody watch the kids while you cook that. There's, like, so much that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. And it's all done that way by design.
Exactly.
Before we end this very impactful session, do either of you have any parting words for our viewers who did not write in last week about this soul food? Yeah, I didn't forget. Y'all thought y'all was going to get away with that, right? No, we still want to hear you write in. We want to know your thoughts.
I did want to say one thing, I think, to talk about before we leave. It's not to say that you have to abide by redlining. When, like Dennetra said, she made sure she got a black, a black realtor, and then, asking those questions and just, being aware of things. It's okay to ask questions, and if you can't go to someone, That's why we have the internet. But I'm sure there's people out there that can help navigate some things, and just, being more aware of your community and surroundings, and again, just asking those questions. So leave it on that. And before Dennetra jumps in and gives her little BSU,
Hey.
yeah, so this week actually hip hop was born. So on August 11th, hip hop is known to have been born in the Bronx, New York. So I just want to throw that in there because that's also a piece of Black history. It was created by created by a Black man who DJ Kool Herc. He is still living today. I believe he is still out there in New York. So that's what I wanted to share. A little tidbit about Black history right there.
Mm-hmm. I have two things. First, we want to let you know that we will be going on a hiatus for a little while. We want to, just because, school is kind of starting and we don't really know what all the different plans are, and we all work in school, so we are just going to take some time to evaluate what fall will look like. And we will, of course, update you, but we will take a little time off of this podcast. And we want to just let you know that when we talk about things like redlining or sundown towns or food deserts, that can become a real downer. Like, that can be overwhelming. That can lead you to experience despair or anger or hopelessness. Like, there are a lot of strong feelings that come with thinking about how big the systems are that are discriminatory to us. And we just want to let you know that we are here. If you email in, you can say, I'm so angry about this, or I feel like there's nothing I can do. I'm feeling this, like I don't have anyone to talk to about this. Whatever you need, we are here to help process. We are here to respond to you and support you as you kind of explore more about how these systems work and how they have worked in the past. And just know that you're not alone in grappling with the bigness and the overwhelmingness of this.
Exactly.
Can I say one thing in being mindful of who our target audience is, which is youth, people in high school, middle school. While you may not be on the verge of buying a house right now, so you might be thinking, oh, that doesn't apply to me. This systemic racism and oppression shows up in many ways as young as your K through 12 experience. For those of you who are embarking on your journey of post-secondary options, what comes next after high school, this can show up by not knowing the benefits of taking DC classes, dual credit classes, AP classes. This can show up without being made aware of the financial aid packets that are out there for you, scholarships and internships and things of that nature that directly benefit you as a young person that your non-Black counterparts are hearing about and being informed of, but you are not. So this doesn't just show up for those who have $20,000 to put down on buying a house, which incidentally you don't need, but they don't tell us that. Anyway, moving on, I digress. It doesn't just show up for you in that way because you don't have an 800 credit score, which incidentally you don't need to buy a house, but they don't tell us that, but I digress. It shows up for you as young people as well in other ways. And we want you to just be mindful of that. Is the point of us sharing these things, because for some of us, we didn't learn these things until we got grown. But if we can put it in the forefront of your mind so that you can be able to name it, call it out, and address it, then you can also start figuring out things that you can do to offset the damage that it causes. So that is the objective of today's discussion. So we hope you take away from it, something that will empower you to move forward and do better because you know better, and not allow it, like Keira said, to fill you with despair and hopelessness and those negative emotions, but use that feeling to fuel you and motivate you to, like my husband says, the best revenge is living well. So just that thought. Anything else, anyone, before we say goodbye?
Nope. You got it. Take it away.
One of these days, y'all gonna do it, but I'll do it. Thank you for joining us yet again. We are always so happy to have you tune in. We'd be happier if we had that feedback, though. But in the meantime, you can always, when we sign on next time, rock out with us and say goodbye from BSU. Hey!
Bye. Thank you all again.
Bye.
See you later.